Simon, moments ago when you said when it comes to Everton, when it comes to one agent in particular, agent Joorabchian, he has influence.
Yep.
Do you mean influence over Farhad Moshiri? Do you mean influence of a substantial nature at that club in terms of deals done?
I think he has. I think he has Moshiri's ear. Up to Moshiri what he does with the information he's given. But I do believe, I'm led to believe, that Keir's quite influential with him. Nothing wrong with that, but I just don't particularly think that the decisions that he's been making on the back of Keir's advice, if that is indeed the case, has been particularly good, is it?
Let's find out. Keir, good morning. Is it true you have influence over Farhad Moshiri? I mean, do you take umbrage at Simon's claim?
You know, when Simon says something, I quite respect it because he's an educated person, unlike someone like a Jamie Carragher, who's, unfortunately, lives in a glass house, spits out of car windows, and has no education in terms of his background when he makes a comment like what Simon just did. Which is why I thought I'd come on and clarify this point, right? I've done 3 transfers of my players over the course of Farhad's tenure at Everton.
Who were the players,
Those 3 were Richarlison, which came in from Watford. And I think that was a very successful transfer. There was a free transfer of Bernard, who came from Shakhtar Donetsk. His contract finished, and again, he was a player that I think was not a complete disaster there. He did very well. We had Carlo Ancelotti, which was the only manager that they've ever taken a recommendation, and we always do the same with every club in the Premier League. We go through, and if someone needs a manager and we have a client, we always present our clients. And then we were involved in the Anwar El Ghazi loan, which was part of a Lucas Digne transfer and a FFP scenario. And Anwar came on loan this way, and unfortunately that didn't work out for them because there was a change of manager. And when the change of manager occurred, Anwar wasn't in the new manager's plans.
Right, so it's fair to say as an agent, you've been busier in business done with other clubs, right?
Correct, much busier, right? We do a lot more work across the Premier League. We have almost a player in every single Premier League club and Championship and across Europe. And even, it's very public. Last year I recommended Vitor Pereira. They went for Frank Lampard. That was very much a board decision. I think, it was even mentioned something on Sky that Bill Kenwright and Denise Baxter have nothing to do there. Jamie said that, and that just shows you that, again, people that say things like that haven't done their homework and misinform the public. And I think that that's really unfair for those people.
Keir, I disagree with you there.
Farhad didn't have, and I know that for a fact, Farhad didn't have a sole vote on the manager last time. He created a board. Denise Baxter was very much involved. She has been very much involved in the hiring of the sport director there, Kevin Thilwell. And she led that. He's not one of my clients. He worked at Wolves previously and then worked in the MLS. I had nothing to do with it. I met him one time. And of course, as we do, we offered him many, many players, and they turned them all down. All the signings of the summer, Trawoski, Cody, Mopai, McNeil, and the list goes on. And all the loans and all the signings that they did were done purely by them and the board. We didn't have any involvement whatsoever.
So you would push back on any allegation that you've got undue influence over Moshiri?
Yeah, we speak to all the owners. I speak to quite a few owners, right? But the point is, what is our job? Our job is to present what we have as a client list and say, this is what we have.
That's fair, Simon, isn't it?
Yeah. Listen, I'm not going back from. I disagree with Keir.
And Everton haven't taken any of our advice.
I disagree.
Or movement.
I disagree with Keir's characterisation of who makes the ultimate decision. As he well knows, the guy in the room with the money makes the ultimate decision. The board gives you advice, but the ultimate decision is made by the guy in the room.
And we know he brought Benitez.
And we know that he is in that situation, and we know that he brought Benitez in. I haven't finished, Keir. It's also not about undue influence. Moshiri's a big boy. He can make his own decisions about who gives him advice and who doesn't. My observation is one of his go-to sources for advice, whether it's Keir's players or decisions he makes around football, is Keir. And so with that in mind, I'm not suggesting it's undue. I'm suggesting that Keir is an influential player and an influential player in the football pyramid. They haven't
taken any of our advice, right?
Say again, Keir?
So they haven't taken any of our advice, right?
Well, I'm not sure that's right, Keir. I think Ancelotti was your advice, and I think the rot started from there. The real rot started from that appointment.
No, I don't think that's quite right about blaming Ancelotti. It was a limited time, but I think what you're saying here, what I'm reading between the lines, is actually if he had listened to you more, he wouldn't be in this predicament, because I did a list of the signings this summer. The signings were crap.
I'm not saying that. I mean, I don't like to say something like that, but I think the one thing is that, Farhad Moshiri, he runs very differently. He's not a person that likes to say himself what he wants to happen. He's created this board. He created it when he bought the club 7 years ago, with Bill as the chairman, Denise and everyone else. And he's always relied on, them, even when, he may have wanted a different manager and, they were against it. I think.
But Keir, you might be positioning yourself in the situation where you're everything to everyone. But when you look at that circumstance, everybody knows that the decision-making process that Moshiri made around Silva was his. Everybody knows that the decision-making process he made around Benitez was his. And everybody knows that the Ancelotti decision was you leading him by the nose.
By the way, apologies for presenting a 5-time winning Champions League, multiple winning.
No, you're missing the point, Keir. You're missing the point. He was the wrong fit for Everton, and so it proved. Everybody knew it was the wrong fit. It was a Hollywood appointment, and he couldn't wait to get out of the door quick enough when Madrid came calling again.
Well, actually, I think that's not true, because again, that's not quite factual. First and foremost, it was one of the only years in the last 7 where they have not been in a relegation situation in December. There's only been 2 times in the tenor that they haven't been that over the last 7 years. Once was Marco Silva, once was Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah, no one's questioning the credibility of Carlo Ancelotti as a manager, Keir. We're talking about the fit for Everton.
No, I understand. You said it was a bad fit.
It was a bad fit.
They sat at the top of the table for most of the Christmas period, and then when the squad started to weigh in on the depth of the squad, and we knew that Liverpool and City and people like that were way ahead of Everton at the time. Carlo actually, I think, would have done very well. The problem was, I think he felt he didn't, when Real Madrid comes knocking, I think he felt he didn't have a choice but to say, okay,
Keir,
what can you do with Real Madrid?
I'll put this to you. For all our listeners this morning, and there are many all around the country, not just Evertonians, is there always something a top agent has to guard against, and that is being seen to be too close to the man at the top of a football club? Do you guard against that? Do you watch you don't get lured into something like that?
I think our jobs is always to present the best that we have to those clubs that are in need. And then I think after that, what you have to guard against is to be careful, is not to be, pushing too hard to make a decision that either goes right or left, which then comes back and smacks you in the face, right? Because then you kind of, you burn yourself at that club, and you burn yourself because you have done something that has gone over the edge. I think, if you have competent people within your organization, and the Premier League is one of the ones that has the most competent people working in it, then I think, those people are very quick to evaluate. I mean, in the past, we offered them Bruno Guimaraes at 16 million when he was leaving Atletico Paranaense. They didn't like him, and they went for Gabamine, and Bruno Guimaraes went on to Lyon.
So Everton could have had Bruno Guimaraes.
Well, yeah, and Diego Carlos, we offered him at 11 million before he went to Sevilla, and now he's ended up at Aston Villa. And Eder Militao, when he was leaving.
Yeah, but Keir, you're very slick, right? Because I've seen you do deals, and I've watched you pump players into football clubs, and then what you do is, because you're a very clever operator, what you do is say, I'll be part of the solution, not the problem, because what we like to do is we like to work with clubs, and if we have a problem, we'll provide them with a solution to that problem after having created the problem in the first place. So with that in mind, Keir, you're slick here, and you're good at what you do. That's why you're in the position that you're in. But you do have influence, and you know you do. And what you're doing is you're shifting it away from Moshiri in this conversation, because he's the money in the room, and you're dropping it at Denise, and you're dropping
Simon,
it at Bill.
You know why I think you're brilliant? Because when you've lost an argument, you want to try to slip it
No,
around.
I'm not losing.
But it's not
No,
working.
Kia, that's you,
You're
mate.
not gonna
That's you. You come in your very calm tones and you're very easy on the ear notions. But when you dig in beneath it, it's cobblers, Kia, and you know it.
You know what you're good. You know what you're good at, Kia. Kia, just for the record, will you be trying to complete any further deals at Everton before 11 o'clock on Tuesday?
Sorry?
Will you be trying to see through any further deals at Everton before 11 o'clock on Tuesday?
Unfortunately, at this particular moment in time, we don't have any players that would suit them in that kind of a relegation battle. Otherwise, I would offer them. We believe very much also in I know you say, oh, this is Simon tried to twist it a little bit right there, but the point is that you don't want to also put players that don't fit into a situation and offer them, because you also create a negativity for a player. If you look at, for example, today, Willian and Andres Pereira are two great examples at Fulham that have absolutely blossomed, right? And Andres Pereira being one of today, probably one of the top midfielders there. In the summer, he would not have fitted into an Everton situation, because at that time, maybe the coach there has a different style, a different mannerism, and the way that he plays.
Yeah.
But he fits very well into a Fulham in the way that he plays. Now, Willian, I think 99% of people would have said, "Oh, he's finished when he left Arsenal, right? He's done. His career's over." And yesterday we got a call from two top clubs saying, "This guy never ages." One said he's like Peter Pan. How much would it cost to pull him out? And we said, no, he's not going anywhere. He's staying at Fulham. So, it also, a lot has to do with the psychology of the players.
Yeah,
and I think, there's very little emphasis on that. You look at Joe Linton at, Newcastle, and how he has blossomed under Eddie and how he's sort of gone from strength to strength. You look at Bruno arriving into Newcastle and being one of the leading midfielders in the world today.
Sure.
And you look at now Dougie Luiz at Aston Villa, who's one of my clients, and the way that he's playing and the way he's evolving under Unai and having signed his new contract.
Simon is right about two things. Number one, you're very clever at what you do and very good at what you do. Number two, you're very well informed. Before you go today, tell us this. What do you know about Bielsa to Everton? Are there problems, or is it going to happen?
Listen, I've never represented Bielsa, but what I do know about Bielsa is as a person, and I've admired him since 2004 when I first worked in Argentina. I think he is one of the top coaches in the world. I think if you speak to any coach in the world, he would say he's one of the top coaches in the world. There's no doubt about it. He has a very harsh, pragmatic style. He's tough, but he gets things done. What he did at Leeds is quite extraordinary, really, with the amount of money that people spend in the Championship to come up every year, the way he did it and create that sustainability. I don't know if he will accept the job at Everton. Really, the Everton board have to decide if he's going to be the right fit, because
he's
also,
not the right
it's not
fit,
about.
Kia.
Well, I know you've been speaking to Farhad in recent days, Kia. Have you been talking to him about Bielsa?
Right, but I just want to tell you something. It's not about. I'll answer that. It's not about just the players on the pitch. You also have to have the backup support. It's not an accident when clubs go down into the relegation mode. Sometimes it's because of financial and they can't afford to buy the players and they can't fight. And sometimes it's because you can keep changing managers, but if the back house is not right, the front will never get right.
So if you were asked by Moshiri, you'd be advocating for him to take Bielsa, Kia, right?
Well, at this moment in time, I'm going to tell you something, Simon. Rack your head. There are not that many potential managers. There is Sean, there is Bielsa, and I can't think of another, because Pochettino. But
you would advocate for Bielsa. If Moshiri asked you, which he probably
will not
has,
take the job.
You'd advocate
for. It's not
so
simple, right? It's not so simple.
No, I understand that, Kia, but let's focus on the point in hand. If you're asked by Moshiri, which you probably have been, about Bielsa, you'd be advocating for Bielsa, yeah?
I would say that he has to take a very, very close look at his organization and make sure that his back house can handle this front house. That is going to be the key.
So you'd be advocating for Bielsa, Keir, right?
No, I wouldn't be advocating for.
So you're not advocating for Bielsa. You'd be telling him to steer away from Bielsa.
I wouldn't be telling him to steer away. I would say, if Bielsa was my client, I would say, what you need to do is you need to make sure your back house can handle your front house.
He's prepared to do as he's told by Bielsa coming in, is what he means, which he's spot on with.
Keir, after the transfer window shuts, what about you, me and Simon having lunch on Simon?
He'll probably do it in his restaurant.
You up for that?
Yeah. It would be a pleasure to have lunch with you and Simon.
Keir Joorabchian, thanks as always.
Take care, guys.
Keir with us live on talkSPORT this morning.